YouTube, it's Justin, aka Demonic Sweaters, back again with another Rosegarden tutorial. This is part 2, and today what we're going to be talking about is external MIDI as well as recording some audio within Rosegarden. If you haven't checked out part 1, be sure to click the link over there and check that out, because that goes through general MIDI and using Q-Synth and just kind of setting up Rosegarden to get it working before you can even do any of this. So you might want to check out part 1. And if you're not familiar with Rosegarden at all, Rosegarden's actually it's basically a MIDI sequencer, but it also records audio. So it's considered a DAW for Linux, and it's really a Linux only program. And I actually really like this program. It's kind of old school. It's been around since the early 90s, but they've made a lot of updates to it since then. But it still has kind of an old school feel to it and interface, but I actually kind of really like that. So, but before we even get started with working with that, I wanted to talk about my new website, which is linuxmusicstudio.com. And I talked about that before in one of my other uploads, but I wanted to mention it again here because I've added a lot of content to it already. And there's other tutorials from other YouTubers up there, as well as some articles that I've written. I'm trying to get some more up there as well. And then I've also started the Made in Linux music series, which is just music that is created in Linux. So I'm going to be uploading those as much as I can, or anytime I find something that I think sounds cool and it was made in Linux, I'm going to put it on that section of the website. So be sure to check that out. And if you can, and if you're interested in these types of videos and you find them helpful, click on my Patreon link, patreon.com/LinuxMusicStudio, and there you can become a patron for any amount you want. And if you do $5 a month, then you can get your names listed in these videos. And that is another thing that I wanted to mention is slowly, or here probably pretty soon, I'm going to be transferring the branding from Demonic Sweaters on this channel to Linux Music Studio. So those of you that subscribe, don't be concerned or confused that if you see new videos being posted by Linux Music Studio, that's actually me, Demonic Sweaters. So just a little heads up on that. Anyway, let's get to this tutorial, and I just wanted to show you what I have set up right here. This is actually a Kawai K1M tabletop synthesizer, and this is one of my favorite synths of all time, the Kawai K1. It's basically a digital waveform synthesizer, which means it kind of has just pre-recorded samples inside of it, and you can kind of layer them, and it has AM frequency modulation. I don't want to get too into this synth just for this video, but I just really like these, and I just want to mention that I have this hooked up. And the way I have this hooked up is going to a MIDI cable. This is just a cheap Chinese MIDI cable that you can get. It just plugs in USB, and it's going MIDI in and out into my laptop. And then I also have the audio outputs of the K1, which is right here, and they're going into my Behringer UMC404HD, which is right here. And if you can see that, that's the audio interface that I'm using for this. Now, I had to go through some kind of tricky maneuvers to get the screen capture to work with my headset mic and with the UMC404HD at the same time. And that's something I'm going to go over in another tutorial pretty soon, because actually this is pretty cool. I'm running this audio interface, going into this other USB audio interface I have on my laptop, as well as the audio interface USB right here, the UMC404HD, and I'm able to run them both at the same time in jack, and so that way I can do the tutorial in Rosegarden. You guys can hear that, and you can also hear me talking into the mic. So let's go ahead and switch over to that, and you'll see what I'm talking about, and we'll get started.
Alrighty, so here we are back inside Rosegarden, and I have my session that I created in the last tutorial up here, the commando sounding thing. And let's just play back a section of this so you can hear it again. Okay, and as you maybe remember, I used all general MIDI to create those sounds using the Q-Synth, Fluid Synth, front end, which is this right here. And you'll see where it even just says a Fluid Synth QT GUI interface. So that is all these sounds are coming from this sound font, which is the Fluid R3 GM sound font, which is one of the default sound fonts that you can get with Fluid Synth when you install it. But as I discussed in the intro to this video, we're going to be working with an external MIDI device in this lesson. And my Kawai K1 is right over here. Let me see if I can lift this up into the camera. I mean, you just saw it a second ago. It's the cables, I can't stretch it over there too far, so I'm going to leave it there. But it's the one that you just saw. And so what we're going to do is this is already hooked up to the computer. And what is cool about working with external MIDI devices in Rosegarden, I mean, you could tell since this software was made such a long time ago, it's actually really good for this exact thing, because at the time when Rosegarden was created originally, which was actually in the early 90s, I believe 1993, you know, basically there weren't software synths back then. You were using all hardware connected by MIDI, you know, by actual MIDI cables going into your computer. And so that was basically how a lot of people did things back in the 90s. It is how a lot of people like to do things still today. Well, I do, and other people do too, especially with like the rise in popularity of hardware again. But anyway, let's not go too in depth about that. But what I wanted to tell you is just it's very cool for using external MIDI in Rosegarden. So in order to do this, what we're going to do first is go to Studio here, and then we're going to go into Manage MIDI Devices. Okay, now this section, you'll notice here on the left we have MIDI Playback and MIDI Recording. And then on the right we have MIDI Outputs and MIDI Inputs. And let's just start with the right side here. Our MIDI outputs are all of the MIDI devices connected to my computer right now. And this counts both hardware and software MIDI devices. So you'll see synth input port. This 129:0 synth input port is actually talking about Fluid Synth right here. So that's what Rosegarden calls that, and that's usually going to pop up as like, you know, one of the first ones in your list right there. And you can usually tell because the other ones are pretty obvious what they are. And this is the MPK2, my Midi controller, which is right there. And then I also have my USB MIDI cable, and that is the cable that's plugged into the Kawai K1. And then there's MIDI through port, which is a software MIDI through port that's part of the MIDI routing within Linux. And then if we go down here to MIDI inputs, we'll see the MK2, USB MIDI cable, and MIDI through port again. And so what we want to do, like a lot of people, what their first thought would be, if they wanted to start using external, would be to use, you know, this MIDI cable, which is what's plugged into the K1. And that's correct, but you don't want to do it yet. What you want to do is actually in MIDI Playback, you want to create a new device. So what we're going to do is click on New, and then let's go ahead and name this one K1. And to do that, you just double click it and then press Enter. And then you'll see down here, no port is selected for output yet. So let's select the MIDI cable. And then on MIDI input, we're just going to leave this on the MK2 so I can still control using the MK2. Now you'll see what this does is now we have, if you look at this list right here in MIDI Playback, and then you look over here on the actual left, this track parameters section of Rosegarden, you'll see that all of these things here correspond with what's in here. So you have device, that's your general MIDI device, and that is this playback device. And then once I click close here, now we'll see in this drop down menu we have K1 as an option. So if we click that instrument, this is going to be your MIDI channel. And so this is basically what we did is we created a software definition for the actual Kawai K1 synthesizer, which is pretty cool because now I can select, you know, if I select a track here or wherever, I can either select the general MIDI device, which is my Fluid Synth or Q Synth plug-in there, or I could select my K1, which is what we're going to do now. And so let's go ahead and name this track, track number 5, K1. Let's call it K1 bass, actually, because... Or K1... yeah, I'll do another bass, whatever. It'll have 2 basses in this song. Okay, so K1 bass. And now on the K1 itself, this K1 is a multi-timbral MIDI device. And what that means is you can have multiple sounds playing at once. And what I'm going to do is select a multi patch. So I have several sounds depending on which MIDI channel I select. So if I play a note here, you'll hear my K1 bass. And that's that right there you're hearing. So I'm playing on my MIDI controller and actually playing the K1 bass. Now if I select a different channel here, it'll play a different sound on the K1. It's like a marimba, flute type thing. Go to number 3. I always love that sound. So you get the idea. What this does is it gives you nice control over your hardware right within Rosegarden, which is pretty neat. So let's go ahead and go back to the beginning here, and what we remembered, or what we did the last section, or the last tutorial. We're going to select a section here of music, and then we're just going to go ahead and loop this back. Let's bring up my transport. Where is my transport? Okay, and then we're going to turn on the click, which it was on already, and then set, loop. And let's go ahead and play this back. And of course this is no longer bass, so let's go ahead and rename this to, I don't know, K1 Fuzzy, because it sounds kind of fuzzy. And let's go ahead and record that. Oops. Alright, so I went ahead and made a mistake there. As you can see, I forgot to record arm the correct track, so let's delete that, what I just recorded, and then unrecord arm drums and go back to the K1. And do that again. And another thing I forgot to show you on the last time doing this is you can actually just quantize right from right here. So I can just go right into 1/16, and that'll automatically quantize what I just played. And you could even have that on before you record and just quantize everything you're doing. And you can also change your colors. So if I want that one midnight blue, change my steel drum color. And this is nice if you're, once you start getting a lot of tracks, having multiple colors is a nice way to be able to tell them apart quickly. Sort of picking random colors here, but they all happen to be blue and green, so let's pick something else. Okay. Alright, so now we have a hardware track playing along with the software. And another thing that I wanted to mention is you can also just transpose directly from here as well. So if we play this back again, let's turn off that metronome. Let's go -5. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, one reason you could do is actually copy a track, or a clip rather. So let's copy this clip, copy that, and let's paste it down here on this track, on the track below it. And now we can put K1 Fuzzy 2 on that one, and then let's select the K1 again. And what channel was this one? Number 3. So let's put this also on number 3. And then we could set this one a 5th, transpose it a 5th up, and now let's hear how this sounds. And that gives it a very, 1980s, when you have that kind of John Carpenter-y sounding sound, when you have those 5th intervals kind of playing together in harmony. It gives it a very cool, I don't know, I just like it. So, but that's one thing you can do with that, and a number of other things. Like if you just wanted to transpose that section or that channel, you can. It's a neat way to quickly change things. You can also do repeat. And this, if you just hover your mouse over it, it'll tell you what you could do here is when you have repeat selected, it's going to go ahead and let's go ahead and select it on this one as well. It's going to go ahead and repeat that part until it runs into another part on that same channel. And that's pretty useful, so you don't have to sit there and copy and paste things over and over again. So what we could do is, like, if we play this back from the beginning, you'll hear it's just going to keep repeating that part over and over again with the other parts when they come in. So listen. Okay, now the problem with that, though, is... There we go. The loop section started in kind of a weird spot, so I had to fix that. And I was able to fix that basically just by clicking on it, and it seemed to correct itself. So let's go ahead and play it back again. I'm not sure what just happened to my tempo there. I don't know. Did I create a tempo change by accident somewhere in there? That was very strange. Let me go back to the beginning. I don't know if you were able to hear that, but it sped up quite a bit there and then went back down to normal. So let's play this back again. Didn't do it that time. That was very strange. Okay, so obviously that section isn't going to work once you go into that change. So what I want to do is record something new for this part. So let's go ahead and create a loop zone here. And what I want to do is actually record over that. And let's mute this one. what I need to do is create a blank area here. And I'm not exactly sure how to do that. Oh, I know what I could do. Let's just go ahead and turn off repeat for now. Alright, I think I found a bug. Let's go ahead and go back to this. Oh, I see. Okay, there we go. Turn off repeat. So you have to click on the actual MIDI event and then turn off repeat for that to work. So let's go ahead and go back to our loop zone. Play it back. So I don't want to have another a fifth version of this one here. So what I'm going to do is just copy that event over there. And then I'm going to open it up in the matrix editor, which wherever it is, there it is. And let's just go ahead and delete all the notes. So that way I have an empty section there that'll stop this one from repeating. All right, now we can go back to the beginning. And highlight this again and turn repeat back on. Save it. And let's go back to the beginning and hear it. Oops. I do that a lot. Okay, let's go back to the beginning now. Turn off loop first. And make sure. Why am I muted? Oh, there we go. Somehow I ended up with a little bit of junk there after that one. I'm not sure what happened there. Oh, because repeat was still on, that's why. Now, one thing you could do is if you double-click on any of the repeated sections, you'll notice that it actually creates the MIDI event. Do you see that? But I don't really want to do that. But that is nice if you want that part that you're repeating, if you want to be able to make a change in there. What you could do is just actually double click it, and then it will create a real MIDI event for you to be able to mess with it. And you can also quantize these individually, which you just saw me doing right there. So let's play this from here. Alright, so let's go ahead, save this again, and we're going to create another K1 channel, K1 something, and then select it here in our track parameters again. And then we're going to select this one for recording, which is the yellow button for some reason. Usually record is red in just about every other program, but I guess it is in the audio section if you look down here. So to record audio, you can do it with the red button there. We'll get to that in a second, but let's go ahead and create another K1 section here. Let me pick a sound. Let's see what we have. It's that bass sound. I don't think there's any drum channels on this one, or drum sounds on this particular patch. And 8 is empty for some reason. Okay. Oh yeah, there's the classic K1 pan flute. Used in a lot of Amiga tunes. This actual synth was sampled to use in a lot of very popular Amiga mod songs, so that's a little bit of computer nerd trivia for you. Yeah, it's just a great sound. It's just a cheesy, airy sounding pan flute, but everybody loves it. Okay, so let's use that. Let's select a loop region again. Let's go ahead. I don't know which one to do. Let's maybe just that. Let's go back to the intro because all that other stuff has a lot of stuff going on already. Of course, this is not high art. I'm just doing this for a demonstration. Okay, so let's play this back. I think I want this one to be a little bit longer, so let's actually extend this loop region twice as long as the other ones. Alright, let's select that, quantize it. I think I want to get rid of this in that part so we can hear that pan flute a little better. Nudge this note over a little bit. Fix that one a little bit. Okay, good enough. Now, what I wanted to do, let's scroll down here and get into the audio section briefly. Now, audio is very minimal in Rosegarden, but it does do some cool stuff. And what you can do here, say you have this, all these K1 tracks, and the next time you open up the program, you don't want to have to hook up your MIDI device again and all of that. Now what you could do is actually record these onto a couple of tracks here. So in order to do that, what we're going to do, I'm going to close my window here so I have a little more room to work with. What we're going to do here is actually pipe the audio that's coming out of the K1, which is actually, if we go here to my jack connections, that is actually going into system capture 1 and 2. And you'll see that those are already automatically going into Rosegarden in 1 is L. And if we select 2, Rosegarden in 1 right. So all we have to do is select Rosegarden in 1. And then down here on instrument parameters, you can see audio in 1 and 2. And we noticed that audio in 1 had both the left and right capture L. And let me scroll back down here, and you can see audio in 1 right here under Rosegarden is both capture 1 and then capture 2. And the way that you could tell this, if you highlight something in Q-Jack control, and like I'm highlighting capture 1 here, you can see everything that it's routed to, like, because sometimes these lines are really hard to figure out where the hell they're going. But you could tell where it's going by just looking at the color here. Like this one is turned blue when I clicked on it, so you could tell that that is routed to that channel. And same with capture 2. If I highlight it, then you'll notice that record in 1R turns blue right there as well as all these other ones where I have it routed into as well right now. And I'm going to get into a video about all this stuff later, as I was talking about in the intro, because this is pretty complicated stuff, or can be. It's not really, I mean, it just looks complicated, but it's really just connecting things together and routing audio around. And there's some interesting things that I had to do to make my screen capture work with the microphone and with the audio interface and all of that. But I want to get into that in a different tutorial, because it's not really having to do with Rosegarden per se. A little bit, but not really. So what we're concerned with here, though, is system capture, and this is the USB device, the Behringer. And I could always rename this, but it's just set up as system right now. So capture 1 and capture 2 are going into Rosegarden 1, left and right. So having this selected as in 1 is all we need to do. And then what we're going to do is record arm this track, and then we're going to go back to the beginning. Make sure this is no longer record armed, as in the K1. And then we're going to go back to the beginning and then just press record. All right, and now you'll see that that recorded some audio there. So what we can do is mute the K1s, and let's play this back. And so now that played that back from the audio track. So if I open this up in Audacity, if I double click that and open it up, we should see a stereo. Yeah, we do see a stereo file right there. So it does record in stereo. And we don't need to save that. And you could use that feature. That's a good way to show you what happens when you select your default wave editor. So if you wanted to do some more detailed editing on the audio file, you can actually do that. You can double click it and it'll open it up right within Audacity. Now you can also, in addition to recording your MIDI channel into audio, you can also record live instruments or whatever you want into Rosegarden, as you can any other digital audio workstation. The only thing with it is pretty minimal. It just doesn't do a whole lot compared to other ones, especially on the editing end. But it does do some pretty interesting things, though. It does have some plugins that you can do, so I can show you some of these. And if we just click on that, it brings up your, basically all of your plugins that you have installed on your Linux system. And there's several here. Let's just see if we can find like a, I don't know, like a reverb or something. Let's go to time and reverbs. And then let's just go to the tap reverberator. I really like that one. It's got a bunch of different styles of reverb in it. So let's play this back. Oh, oops. I was wondering why I didn't hear anything, because I selected it on the wrong channel. And I am a human that makes mistakes, everybody. So let's do it on the right channel this time. Let's go to plugins. And actually, before I do that, let me disarm that one so we don't do anything weird there. And let's just rename this channel to K1 Audio. And then let's go ahead and select a plugin. Let's go back to reverb. Okay, let's play it back so we can hear what it sounds like. You can play around with different effects. Let's check out some choruses. That's more of a delay than a chorus. Filters. I have no idea what these things are going to do. That's pretty cool, actually. If you could, if you could do some automation on that, that would be really cool. But you really can't with Rosegarden as far as audio. There's little that you can do, like that kind of stuff. But one of the things that you can do that's pretty neat, and let me just turn this off. Let's bypass it for now. Let's go ahead and copy this. Like we did the other ones, you can just hold down Control, drag it. Okay. And what I want to do too is actually split it. So I'm going to click on my split tool and go back to my selection tool, and I want to delete the one on the end here. So what you can do here is actually also involves holding down the Control key, but this time instead of dragging the whole item, what you're going to do is actually click on the edge like you were going to stretch it, except hold down Control, and now you'll notice that pointer turns to that other type of symbol, and I'm going to stretch this all the way to the end there. And now what you'll hear is it actually stretches the audio. I have no idea what that's going to sound like. It might be bad, but we'll see. I just wanted to give an example of what this actually does. So let's go ahead and play that section back. Yeah, see, it's not on time at all. But what you can do, and what I have done, is you can actually use that as kind of a weird effect. And you can also use it to correct like timing mistakes and things like that if you just want to stretch something a little bit. But what I like to do is actually make it more extreme. So I'm going to take a small section of it here. And let's delete all of that. And now I'm going to stretch this one tiny little small section pretty far. So let's stretch that all the way over to here. It's quite a bit of processing it has to do on that long of a stretch. All right, now let's play that back. Get the idea. It's a way that you can add some unique effects and, you know, just kind of experiment and process some audio and things like that. Now, the one thing with Rosegarden it doesn't really have is a bounce feature. Now, what you can do, like I was saying before, is you can actually record all of the audio directly within Rosegarden, and that essentially is the same as a bounce feature. So if we were to take all this general MIDI and all of that stuff and not bounce it, but record it to a track here, you know, like any one of these tracks, rather than just the MIDI device, but record every single sound that's coming out into one of these tracks, then what you could do is actually take this track, and if you right-click it, you can go to Open a Matrix Editor. Or actually, no, you can't do that here. What happens when you do that? Yeah, never mind. What you could do is double-click it, and it'll open it up in Audacity. That's what I was trying to say. So if you double-click it, like I showed you before, then if you were to record all of those sounds, well, let's just go ahead and do it. Why am I even telling you? Let's just do it, and you can see what I'm talking about. No, I don't want to save it. Okay, so let us get rid of this because we really don't need that. I still have my MIDI device hooked up. And we're going to turn our MIDI back on here from the K1. And then we're going to keep this one armed, but now we're going to call it mix. And now what we want to do is make sure we have everything going in to the correct channels on Rosegarden. So Q synth we also want going here. So we're going to connect that to N1, and then we're going to connect right into record N1 right. And what else do we have? That's all really. We have the capture is already hooked up, and that's going to be the MIDI, or the external MIDI rather, the K1. And then all we need to do is capture the Q synth. So if we just play this back, we have that record armed. Record it. Actually, let me do that again because I don't want that click in there. If you have the click turned on, oh sorry, I'm an idiot. That's the click that comes on by itself while it's recording, so that won't record. Let's go ahead and go back. Actually, it might. Well, we'll find out. Okay, let's see if that actually did record the click. So I want to solo this. It does. Okay, that's unfortunate. So you really don't want to do that. I'd never actually tried that before. I thought that would work, but it doesn't. So plan B, and this is actually how I normally do it. It's with this nifty little tool called Jack Time Machine, and it's just listed as Time Machine if you search it. So if we just go here, let me just show you. App Cache, search, Time Machine. Not to be confused with Apple's Time Machine, but it's this one right here. Just Time Machine Jack Audio Recorder for spontaneous and conservatory use. I'm not sure why it says that, but let's go ahead and open up Time Machine. And Time Machine is pretty nifty. It's just basically a giant record button. So all we're going to do is the same thing we were doing with Rosegarden, except we're going to do it in Time Machine. So we're going to take our system capture and we're going to route that into Time Machine. So let's just highlight System and then Time Machine, click Connect, and that should do it automatically to the correct channels. Yeah, it does. And now we're going to do the same thing with QSynth. So select QSynth and then Time Machine, click Connect. Now let's play it back and we should see a recording level. See this right here? Alright, let's rewind, press record, and I can even talk while that's going on because my voice isn't being routed to it. So even though you can hear me, Time Machine can't hear me. Got my record level a little bit high there, and that's another thing that's pretty nice about Time Machine. It actually does give you those levels. So that was actually QSynth that was too high. So the way that you could change that is actually just go into QSynth and just turn the gain down right here, and that'll actually take care of that. And then you could adjust your other levels accordingly from your MIDI device. Now you may be thinking, okay, so now what? We just recorded, now where is it? So it's actually pretty easy. What it does is just goes directly to your home folder. And if we just scroll down here, you'll see it down here at this right here, TM dash, and that just stands for Time Machine 2018. It has a date stamp on it. And now the only thing that's weird about Time Machine is it records in this kind of bizarre format, which is this W64 format, which is kind of this archaic type of wave file. But it's totally fine. It actually sounds great. It's just as high quality as a floating point Microsoft wave. It's just another type of wave. So, but don't be worried. You can still open this up in Audacity. So just right click it, go to open with other application, and we're just going to find Audacity in here. And there it is. Click select. And that'll open that right up. It'll just import it in, and there you can see it. So after you do that, then you'll have your song basically bounce down into Audacity. I don't know if this is configured to work with my jack recorder right now, so I'm not going to play that back. It might cause something to crash. But that's how you can do it. There's no real bounce feature, but it's not really a problem. You can just directly record into Time Machine, or you could do it directly into Audacity as well. But I find that to be a little bit more of a pain just because Audacity has kind of a strange way that it works with jack. Like the jack inputs and outputs only really appear when you're playing and recording. If you press stop, they just disappear. So it's really hard to connect things. But there's other recorders. You could do it into Ardour, or you could do it into, you know, just any type of wave recorder. I know there's a bunch for Linux, but I prefer Time Machine just because I like the simplicity of it, and then I can just open it up in Audacity and mess around with it, or in any other program. So that covers a lot of stuff. I didn't get too much into notation for Rosegarden just because that's not really what I'm good at. I'm not really great at reading music, though it is a very cool feature on Rosegarden. And it's very nice that it just kind of gives you this, you know, it's a good way to learn reading. You know, if you play it back, it's just cool to watch the stuff play back. So let me just play this so you can see what I mean. Let's go here. Back to the beginning. Well, select the part that's actually playing. So let's open that in default editor. Go back to the beginning here. There you go. And you can also see, I do know this symbol right here at the bars and the dots, that means repeat. So that shows you that it's actually going to be repeating that for that next section, and then you can see the kind of notes there grayed out, but just telling you that it's going to be repeating up until that change. So that's pretty cool. You know, there's not I know it does a whole lot more that I just really don't use, and maybe at some point I will get into that and share what I know or what I figure out. But for right now, this is basically all I have to share. But hopefully you found it pretty useful and like the tutorial. And if you did, feel free to click like and subscribe. And once again, check out linuxmusicstudio.com. And if you can, become a patron. Just go to patreon.com/linuxmusicstudio. And whatever you can do to help would be really cool. So again, thanks for watching. This is Justin, aka Demonic Sweaters, signing off with Rosegarden tutorial number 2. Have a great day, everybody.